next panel, please welcome the SVP of Domestic Planning and United Express at United Airlines, Ankit Gupta, and the Head of Revenue and Planning at JetBlue, Scott Laurence, and the Vice President of Network Planning at Southwest Airlines, Adam Decare, in conversation with Skift Airlines reporter Edward Russell.
Good morning, gentlemen. Adam, Scott, it's a pleasure to have you here today. Ankit will be joining us in a few, but thank you guys for joining us.
Great to be here.
Yep, thanks for having us.
Excellent. Well, hopefully next year we'll be able to do this in person. It's much more fun to do this on a stage. But so, one of the things that I continually hear from anyone in network planning with crises is that they create great opportunities for change. Each of your respective airlines have really embodied that. JetBlue, you've used this crisis to open a new LAX base, go into Miami, greatly expand in the Northeast, and Southwest. Adam, you've added 18 new destinations, which is crazy. I remember when Southwest was an airline that added maybe one or two a year, and that was big news. So, tell me a bit more. I want to say, alliances aside, we'll get to that later. But tell me more. Is this willingness to make out-of-the-box changes going to stick around? Scott, tell me a bit.
So, look, I think there was an opportunity here to do a lot of what we had been eyeballing and wanted to do. And we had an enormous opportunity because, we had airplanes that you sort of normally the constraint is we don't have the airplanes to do some of what we'd like to, right? Any network planner will tell anybody else at an airline that they need more planes. That's just part of it, right? You come in on day one and you learn that network planning, I need more planes. We had that opportunity. And, we went actually out and launched more than 100 new routes. We went very leisure heavy because obviously business customers just weren't a thing during the beginning of the crisis. And now as they return, we're actually trying to reconcile the things that we've added that work really well. And we're very thrilled with some of those. Some of the experiments that we tried, we've actually already reduced. And as we move forward and look toward next year, I would say a lot of this stuff is sticking and we're really pleased with it. I mean, you mentioned the move from Long Beach to LAX. Obviously, we're thrilled with that. And that capitalizes on our strength in the transcon markets. It allows us to do more at LAX. And, that's a good example of something that is certainly here to stay and will grow for JetBlue.
Nice. And Adam, what about you? What about Southwest? 18 new cities? Are we going to see 18 more next year?
Well, let's hope not. So we definitely had. It's the same as kind of Scott was telling you. Is that a lot of times we don't have the airplanes to do what we wanted to do, and these cities were on our list of things to get to. As you mentioned before, we would have probably done one or two of these a year. It would have taken us the next 9 or 10 years to actually execute all those. So we had 10 years of city growth right there, and so we're not likely going to see that going forward. Again, just like with the other carriers. You had the opportunity to, again, move some of the airplanes out of the business markets. We do that very well, a lot of our short haul flying. And so we moved it into these leisure destinations. We had an opportunity to get into big airports like Chicago O'Hare, which previously didn't have any room at the end. We were able to get there and set up shop, and our customers have been very thankful for that. We were able to do that. So a lot of customers in Chicago that knew of us and wanted to fly Southwest Airlines. So we're happy to be part of those communities.
One thing that strikes me, both of you have mentioned, is a lot of these changes were things you wanted to do, but then they've also been successful so far. So like you mentioned, Scott, the 100 new routes, most of them are sticking around, even outside of the LAX additions and stuff. You're seeing a lot of success with these markets, as you said.
We are. Look, we've had to cancel some of them. Some things have come back down, right? I think we certainly got some doses of reality as we looked at performance as the summer closed out and we saw the fall as well. And the Delta variant certainly didn't help that. But there are places where we flexed, where we saw certainly some potential that didn't work as well. And the examples of that are markets, in Richmond or Raleigh that we tried. I mean, we actually flew Raleigh-Jacksonville, which is something that we'd eyeballed for a period of time. And that's an example of a market that we probably took a step a bit too far. But if you look at this, a lot of this has really resonated with customers. Certainly the leisure mindset has worked. A lot of what we added, the points like Cancun, that is here to stay. And were far more creative than I think historically we've been willing to sort of indulge in some of this, and we were rewarded for that. I think the creativity of some of what we got, and then obviously there's also a role that plays in this with what we did with the NEA, and I know we'll talk about that in a bit, but that also played a role here as well, because obviously the focus in the Northeast is something that we could capitalize on as we added some of this new flying.
Definitely. And Adam, your 18 new destinations and Hawaii expansion, if I recall correctly, took 92 aircraft is what I've heard.
Yeah, I think. I think that there's a little bit closer to 100, but because we just added the 2 more in Bellingham and Syracuse, and so we've completed that. That was all done in less than 365 days. So it was phenomenal work by a heck of a team here to go get that done. And much like Scott's saying, we were rewarded with the customers really embracing that. A lot of the communities were really happy that we were there. We did a lot of that with a lot of community support. So we really didn't spend a lot of cash to open up these new cities, and it was really something incredible to watch. So it was a lot of community outpouring that occurred there.
For sure. It sounds like it. Well, one of those new airports that you both have gone into is Miami, which is interesting because both JetBlue and Southwest have a large base in Fort Lauderdale, which is just up the road. What made Miami so attractive to add during this crisis? Adam, start with you.
Yeah, there was a couple of things there. We'd already, I know it's kind of hard to know that, but we were already doing some maintenance there, some heavy maintenance in Miami. So we were flying airplanes in and out of Miami even during the beginning of the pandemic. And it just made sense to put some, the pilots were already on there, the planes were already going there. Might as well put some people on there as well. So that was the beginning of the idea. We think that they're really separate markets because, people that are trying to fly from our big cities down into Miami want to get to Miami. So we saw a whole new list of customers that were flying us from Chicago and from Baltimore that were not previously flying us. So again, it was an exciting opportunity and we took advantage of it.
Excellent. And Scott, were you seeing some of the same trends? I imagine you weren't ferrying aircraft to Miami for maintenance while with Fort Lauderdale right there, but maybe you were. Seeing some of the same things for you guys.
We were flying to Miami, but not on purpose.
Okay.
In Fort Lauderdale, or if we had weather, so we'd have airplanes there from time to time. But for us, I think it's a little bit different than what Adam had encountered, and I think for us, it was a part of a South Florida strategy. So, we had found that our service in Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale were complementary. We had consistently gotten feedback from customers about flying Miami. And I think what's interesting is we likely would have done this. It was something that was coming in part because, again, we wanted to serve South Florida. We wanted to be there and continue to be a big part of the community. I think the steps that we took were a bit more aggressive. One of them was the ability to fly transcon and actually put Mint into both Miami and in the Palm Beach. And, those are places where, again, I think that aggressiveness and the creativity was rewarded for us. And I think flying a Mint airplane from Miami to LA is something that when we look at all of what we did during the crisis, I think that's right at the top of the list at the best ROI that we got, and a market that is here to stay and that is just performing incredibly well. So we're thrilled with that. And I think that's the kind of stuff that during the crisis, we'll look at that at the next crisis and say, hey, listen, our aggressiveness was rewarded here.
Nice. Wow. Miami, LAX, that's one of those sort of legacy, high revenue markets that you imagine. So I imagine doing well. I want to say welcome to Ankit Gupta from United. You were able to join us. So welcome to the chat.
Thank you, Ned. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you all right. I wanted to.
Sorry, go on.
No. I wanted to throw a question I threw out to Adam and Scott earlier. Just sort of about the opportunity to change networks in crises. United, you did a number of point-to-point routes. You did some interesting stuff. Is that out-of-the-box thinking here to stay for United? Tell us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And good morning to my peers as well, Adam and Scott. Great to see you. And what I would say to your question, Ned, is that there is quite a few things that I think all the airlines did. And from a United's perspective, one of the things that is kind of underrated, or some things that you don't see on a normal in the headlines or the news is the restructure of almost every single one of our hubs, every single one of the months over the course of the pandemic. So if you think about the last 18 months, you will see a different structure of Chicago or Denver or Houston or Newark. Pick a hub, the 7 hubs that we have. We had to have a different structure every given month. And the reason for that was the different demand profiles, the different aircraft needs that we had, or the supply that we had on the aircraft side or the pilot side, and all the connectivity that we had to provide to make sure that we provide all our customers access throughout the pandemic. So it was just an underrated thing. I think that is also something I would love to highlight. Chicago went from 2 time channels. Originally, it used to have 11 time channels. We went down to only 2 time channels at the peak of the pandemic. And we brought it back to 5, then 7, then 9. And there's a lot of engineering that goes into that. Generally, we do that once a year, and we did that once a month for every hub. So that was a Herculean effort on all of the teams from a network planning perspective.
For sure. I imagine all of your teams are working very hard throughout the crisis to keep things going, considering the number of schedule changes they had to look through. We all had to look through during the past year and a half. Great. Well, so Ankit, we talked a bit about some of the new destinations JetBlue and Southwest added, but one of the key things that a lot of people are interested in and has grabbed a lot of headlines is the Northeast Alliance. JetBlue and American, you launched this beginning of the year, and it's grabbed attention. Scott, can you tell me a bit about what the Northeast Alliance means for JetBlue?
Well, for us, it means access, and I think that's incredibly important for us. And if you look at our ability to grow in Newark, to grow in LaGuardia, and to grow in JFK, particularly, that does not happen without the slots that come in from the NEA, from the Northeast Alliance. That also means competition. That means things that are great for customers. So, when JetBlue goes from 15 to 35 and eventually 55 to 60 flights at LaGuardia, that is something that challenges a series of monopoly routes that are flying from LaGuardia right now. At JFK, having the ability to actually fly transcon schedules that are competitive rather than red eyes, the ability to arrive in the afternoon, which means a morning trip out of a city like Portland, Oregon. Also, the ability to bring a viable third global competitor in and provide feed as JetBlue and American work together on long haul flying. So certainly at Kennedy and LaGuardia, and then at Newark, again, I think it emboldened us to be offering flying that is part of a sort of more global footprint there as well. So the ability to partner with American with a loyalty program, the ability to utilize the sales teams of both airlines, and the ability, frankly, to coordinate how we schedule and what we fly, I think is unique. I think it is incredibly customer positive, and it's something that I think is going to allow us to really change how these the dynamics of these Northeast markets, and bring prices down, bring a lot more JetBlue service. It sort of allows JetBlue to be JetBlue. At the same time, American grows as well. There's more long haul flying that's coming. So if you sort of look at how the NEA drives growth, it's a lot of departures for JetBlue to sort of short and medium haul destinations. And for American, it's a lot of long haul flying that's going to drive a lot of capacity through 300 seats flying 7,000 miles.
For sure. Now, it's interesting you mentioned the shift between long haul and short haul over the weekend. American loaded a number of route exits for them. In the New York area, it was 13 from LaGuardia, 5 from JFK, 2 from Boston. Most of those routes are served by JetBlue, not all, and most of them were actually short haul markets. But one question that I get repeatedly is, how do you respond to the criticisms that JetBlue is just a lower cost feeder for American? I've looked at the numbers. Your unit costs were about 2 cents less than Americans in the third quarter. How do you respond to those criticisms?
Well, I'd say a few things. The first is, one of the things that is critical that's out there that the NEA does not cover is pricing. We don't touch pricing. Pricing can't be discussed. There's nothing out there involving pricing. So with a JetBlue airplane comes a JetBlue cost structure, but also comes a JetBlue pricing structure, right? We manage demand by growing capacity. right? We don't manage demand by increasing prices. We want to make sure that we've got throughput. We want to make sure that we're giving people the opportunity to travel. So, part of this is just great service at low prices. Again, JetBlue being JetBlue, this is our DNA. This is what the company was started to do. If you look at David Neeleman, and say, how did, what was it that you were looking to do when you started JetBlue? It was this concept of bringing humanity back to air travel. It's a lot more of that in places that matter more and allow us to be far more competitive. So, again, I think when we look, and I'm quite passionate about this, when we look at working with American, this is about JetBlue being JetBlue, and this is about being more competitive. More flights, more places, and frankly, just being a better competitor in the Northeast. There are places where our footprint in New York was largely leisure. Now we have the opportunity to challenge other carriers in business-oriented markets.
So I want to touch on that competition aspect that you just mentioned. You and Doug Parker earlier here at the forum, talked about creating a third major competitor to United and Delta in the New York and Boston area. Ankit, United has a large hub at Newark. You've long touted it as the largest hub in New York City. How does United view the new alliance?
All right, can you hear me? I guess I think there's some technology troubles, but in terms of Northeast Alliance, I think Scott talked about the Northeast Alliance. It's better that we hear from Scott than our view on that, because I think it's appropriate. But what I can talk about is United service out of Newark and New York City, and as you can see that in November, we felt that the demand was right, and that's why our schedule is back to full schedule. For the first time, we are back to 413 departures or so out of Newark. We're back to flying our full schedule out of LaGuardia and DCA, the slotted airports. There's no domestic waivers in place, and I think it's right that we are seeing about 80 to 90% demand out of major metro locations out of Newark. The one thing that we've done is removed all single cabin 50-seaters starting November 1. So I think just like Scott mentioned, it's all about the customer, and it's all about what the customer wants. And United, in this case, is providing the customers the desired product that they've always wanted. We are really happy to be able to do so starting November 1, putting the 550 product in, doing the 18 times a day DCA shuttle is something that we are just looking forward to how that performs. But longer term, I think the New York local passenger will choose based on options, based on scheduling, based on price, based on all the other products and amenities that come along with certain airlines. And I think let the customer choose. And I think I would leave it at that.
Let the customer choose. Famous, that definitely what we see every day in the airline industry.
Yeah.
So, Adam, you are sort of on the other side of this. Southwest had objected to the alliance earlier this year. Despite and one of the things that it was interesting is the alliance requires slot divestitures at JFK and National, but Southwest still didn't feel like those are enough. What does Southwest think, and do you want more slots? What would make Southwest think that this alliance is good to go?
Yeah, thank you. We would like to see more divestitures because just like Scott was saying, it's really about access, and it's difficult to access the New York, all three of those airports without getting either some actual gates or slots. In the case of LaGuardia, you need the slots, and we've got some access there, but it's not large enough to really break into the market. And you saw recently in the last couple of years, we had the withdraw from Newark. Southwest Airlines would argue that just having three competitors, American, Delta, and United, to compete for customers, that's really what generated Southwest to begin with, is the Southwest effect, and that bringing in a strong LCC with a really good brand name would be good for consumers. And so we'd like to get more access, obviously, to New York, and we think that this might be an opportunity to do that. So we definitely want to grow our presence there so that we can compete and bring the prices down.
For sure. Would you guys look at going back into Newark, after leaving it in late 2019?
It was difficult with the amount of space that was available there. We would need to have some reasonably sized space to give us an opportunity to be competitive.
Okay. No, definitely. So, of course, one thing that is looming over all of this is the DOJ suit. And Scott, I want to give you a minute to comment on that. What it is JetBlue still defending the alliance against the DOJ?
Vigorously. Here's what I would say. I think, and I would look to Ankit's comments at the beginning of this. If you look at what our competitors are doing, right, they're upping their game, they're competing, and they're not going to sort of knuckle under and sort of look at this and welcome us to the market. They're going to let consumers decide, which is why the DOJ lawsuit is such a head scratcher. It is incredibly good for customers. If you look at how Delta and United have reacted, right? Delta has added back a ton of service in New York, in Boston. United has upped their game. I think the concept of, the CRJ 550 is a great example where, United is reacting to, more competition by upping their game in terms of product. The product is getting better. The prices are coming down, yet the DOJ is somehow objecting to this. I think in part just, because it seems wrong. And it just does not seem like an enlightened view of allowing the market to go out there and do great things for customers. So again, we obviously will be able to litigate this and take it to court. I think we're looking forward to that. We are going to win, and we're very confident about that. And again, this is about our DNA. This is JetBlue being JetBlue, which is ultimately consumer friendly.
Well, it's we'll see if this goes to court or settles, as many of us expect. For sure. As we're coming out of the crisis, one thing that we've seen is sort of staffing has presented some issues for airlines operationally. On the network planning side, what do staffing issues mean for as you look out to 2022? Do you have to take consideration of these? How does this impact your planning? Ankit, I'm going to punt this to you first because United recently pulled out of 9 smaller markets, express markets, but still, how are staffing issues playing into your decisions for 2022?
Yeah, I think staffing is a global phenomenon at this point, and certainly in the US, no industry is immune to it, airlines as well. If you look across the board, I know it's been called the Great Resignation, but at the same time, there's more opportunities and there's more interviews and more recruitment activities that are going on at United, at other airlines, and so on. Some of our workers are highly skilled, whether you look at the pilots or the technicians. So that skill set it's harder to come by. It also takes months to train. And I would say that from a United's perspective, we started a bounce back exercise about, I would say, a year ago, 6 months into the pandemic, while we were still, headfirst into the day-to-day fire drills. We were still looking at when that bounce back would happen. And I'm sure other airlines were doing that too. But at the time, we were more realistic about just our expectations of how we will be able to staff, not exactly from airport agents down to contact centers, but just from a global perspective. We thought, how would the demand shape up, and how do we want to react to that? So it has been part of our, like you said, the DNA of our network planning activities. We cannot plan a network without knowing what the resources are. There are lots of inputs that go into a network plan: aircraft plans, the fleet plan, the resources on the crew side, flight attendants, pilots, how many technicians can work on a plane, how many maintenance locations are available to us. So all of these factors that go into this recipe are determine what our schedule can look like. And in December of this year, we're going to be the highest we've ever been. So we have actually been very slow and steady in terms of our ramp up. If you see, we've grown from 60 to 65 to 70 to 75, and that has actually helped us, or keep us in good stead, because it has been a slower ramp up rather than some of the topsy-turvy nature that you see in some other airline schedules. So we are pretty confident about our staffing resources. Again, we are joined at the hip of the operation. I'm sure my colleagues are too, in terms of determining that.
For sure. I did want to ask you, Doug Parker at American mentioned, needing to do incentives in some of the regional providers to get pilots. You oversee United Express as well as United's domestic network planning. Are you seeing any pressures there on the pilot side, getting express pilots, or is that limiting your plans, or not at all?
I would say I wouldn't be, not draconian is not the right word, but it is not as much impacting our network plans as our future planning efforts. Clearly, there is a pilot scarcity across the industry. There's lots of growth plans across all the airlines. Every airline has a significant outsized growth plan compared to what airlines used to do. There were significant early outs during the pandemic. There are significant retirement bow waves that are about to happen. So what you see on the horizon is there is a lot of pilot attrition that you are going to that you can foresee already month by month, and that is going to put pressure on almost every single regional operator. And that's why you see some of the American activity in terms of the bonuses they're offering, whether that's Envoy or PSA, or some of the bonuses that our partners are offering on their own. You see a small little airline like GoJet or Commutair are now offering $50,000 in terms of direct entry captains, which is kind of an industry first that never used to happen in the regional space. So I would say there is immense pressure, not as draconian as structural changes yet, but I think there is more to come on that front over the next 12 months.
Definitely. Keeping with the staffing issues, Adam, Southwest has seen its fair share of operational issues this year. How has those focus on keeping the operation intact and staffing impacted your plans for 2022?
Yeah, it's a great question. When we first were starting, much like Ankit was saying, was at United was talking about this bounce back plan and getting back and everything kind of flying again. We had it all modeled out. Lots of inputs coming out. It says, hey, this is how many pilots. I mean, we all have that kind of structured kind of inputs. This is how many pilots you need. This is how many flight attendants you need. And it just goes all the way through to planes needed to be at maintenance. And so the models were, gosh, they're historic. They've been used forever. They've worked forever. Suddenly didn't work as effectively as we needed them to when there was a second wave or third wave or how many ever waves we've had so far. With Delta coming back through the Delta wave, pilots and flight attendants were getting sick at a different rate than they'd historically been. And it was kind of hard to necessarily adjust to that. And so now as you look forward into 2022, it's a little difficult to know and be predictive of how COVID is going to impact employees' ability to come to work. And so we just have to be as flexible as we can. We've been flexible throughout this pandemic. We've been changing schedules as needed and accordingly, and we'll continue to do that as much as we need to in order to, make sure that we're getting our airplanes to customers. We definitely want to be reliable, so it's our focus. We saw that we've had a reduction here for the summertime period, and we just published a few weeks ago, and it was a focus on making sure that we are providing a reliable operation for our customers.
Well, that's very important. I know when I travel, the best flights are the ones that I don't have anything to report back on time and everything. Yep. Southwest has traditionally flowed aircraft across this network, so planes do quick turns and stuff. Have you had to pad any of those turns or anything, or assume a plane's going to do 8 segments instead of 9 segments a day as part of your sort of adjusting to include flexibility, or are those things staying pretty constant?
It's an interesting question because a lot of times you reach right for the idea that we don't have as many of our airplanes going out and back from hubs. And that was a part of a reason why we had the operational challenges we did in Columbus Day. But just a week or two after that, you saw American, very obviously hub and spoke network, also have challenges. So the idea that a hub and spoke is easier or harder, it's different. And it presents a lot of the same challenges. And so we haven't necessarily, it was predictive to know when pilots or flight attendants were going to be sick, and you could pinpoint where that would happen. Then you could obviously add a turn, block, or spares in the appropriate spot, but it's not that predictive. And so it's just really about being able to be as flexible as possible and creating a network that has a little bit more flexibility built into it.
For sure. So one last question to wrap us up. Give us any highlights or surprises in your summer 2022 plans. Scott, I'll start with you.
Look, I think be on the lookout for our load of Boston, London. So I think that's first and foremost in our mind, right? We committed to Boston. We're going to have that out there. But again, I think we look toward a lot of what we'd announced and some of the NEA markets coming to fruition. So we're really excited about our first Transporter Canada flying with Vancouver opening up. We're also really excited to see the A220s stretching their legs a bit in our network and moving into the transcon market. So more LRs, more A220s, more NEA. We're pretty excited and really optimistic as we look at next year.
Great. One plug, bring the A220 to Washington as soon as you can. I'd love to see it.
All right.
Ankit, what about you? Summer 2022 highlights.
Very excited about summer 2022. Hopefully COVID is in the rearview mirror. Nobody can predict what happens with the demand, but assuming that we stay the course today, I would say we're really excited about the global footprint, how we are increasing our global footprint. My buddy Patrick, who's on the international side, has grown the international footprint significantly, new routes, new destinations, new planes. On the domestic side, I'm really excited about just getting back to our hub structures, just even getting back to the 2019 levels, but with better product and better planes and, exiting some of the 50-seaters that have historically tied me down, unlike my colleagues over here. I'm a little jealous about that. But just getting rid of those single cabin 50-seaters, especially in markets where they should not be flying. Really excited about that. The brand new 738 MAX, the product on board, the Bluetooth connectivity, everything that we're doing around it. But more importantly, I would say just the new service standard that we're setting. I think from a legacy perspective, that is something we've trailed behind in our space. And we are setting a brand new product standard. And we're really, really excited about that.
Nice. And Adam, take us out. What about at Southwest?
Well, we've had a lot of surprises here the last year, so we're looking forward to a little bit more boring year. Just getting kind of back to the basic blocking and tackling, as one might say. But you see us, continue to rebuild our network. We're really excited about the 18 new cities that we've started. And now just continuing to put the flights back in, get our density back up and going. And we really think that we're looking forward to that. You've seen our product enhancements on the Southwest business side. Continue to make big steps there. And we'll just continue to ride that again and give them the customers the reliability and schedules that they're used to seeing from Southwest Airlines.
Great. Well, those all sound good. We'll be watching closely. Thank you all for joining us today and have a great one.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.